At exactly 2:45 in the morning local time, hidden beneath a crumbling industrial warehouse in occupied Donetsk, one of Russia's most secretive and elite drone warfare units is working in total silence. This is the Rubicon Unmanned Systems Command, a high-tech nerve center directing thousands of autonomous strikes across the front line. Inside, the officers are surrounded by tens of millions of dollars worth of encrypted communication servers, feeling completely untouchable beneath 3 feet of reinforced concrete. At this very moment, they are finalizing the code for a massive coordinated winter drone offensive. But they have no idea that in exactly 90 seconds, their irreplaceable command center will be turned into a smoking crater of melted silicon and vaporized steel, and the weapon racing toward them is not a multi-million-dollar cruise missile. It is a swarm of Ukrainian autonomous drones that cost less than a used sedan. But the real brilliance of this operation does not end here in Donetsk. The shockwave from this localized strike is being deliberately designed to trigger a catastrophic cascading failure inside Russia's most secure aircraft production facilities hundreds of miles away. As the first Ukrainian drone crosses the city limits, it runs straight into a massive wall of electronic interference being broadcast by a Russian jamming vehicle. But instead of dropping from the sky, the drone's artificial intelligence instantly identifies the jamming frequency, smoothly cuts its radio link, and switches to pure optical terrain mapping, making the million-dollar jammer useless in a fraction of a second. Before we go any further, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. With the electronic warfare barrier completely bypassed, the silent assassin drops to an altitude of just 40 feet, skimming over the rooftops of the sleeping city. It is flying so low that the turbulence rattles loose shingles on the abandoned homes below. This lead drone is not carrying a heavy explosive payload. It is a dedicated electronic warfare scout fitted with a specialized sniffing algorithm. Its one mission is to hunt down the localized air defense systems protecting the Rubicon facility. Then suddenly, the drone's sensors detect a sharp spike in thermal radiation dead ahead. A Russian anti-aircraft battery, more specifically, a rapid-fire twin-barrel cannon concealed under a camouflage net, sweeping the low-altitude corridors. The Russian operators, relying on passive thermal optics, spot the incoming heat signature from the drone's battery pack. In a panic, they squeeze the trigger, unleashing a wall of heavy armor-piercing incendiary rounds that rip through the night sky. The Ukrainian drone does not try to dodge. In a stunning act of sacrificial programming, it flies straight into the throat of the incoming fire. In the final 0.8 seconds before the heavy-caliber rounds tear it apart, its optical cameras capture the exact muzzle flash of the cannon, calculate the precise geographic coordinates, and beam that critical targeting data back to the rest of the swarm waiting patiently in the darkness. The destruction of the scout drone triggers a burst of cheers from the Russian gunners, who truly believe they have just stopped the attack and saved the Rubicon center. Their celebration lasts exactly 11 seconds. The moment the anti-aircraft gun's coordinates are received, 2 heavily armed strike drones split off from the main swarm and launch into a synchronized high-speed dive from opposite directions. The Russian operators desperately try to swing their heavy manual turrets around, but they are trying to solve an impossible geometric problem against machines that do not feel fear, confusion, or fatigue. The first strike drone slams directly into the sandbags protecting the front of the gun emplacement, detonating its high-explosive fragmentation warhead. The concussive force throws the gunners to the ground, deafens them instantly, and shatters the cannon's delicate optical sights. Just 1.5 seconds later, the second drone delivers the kill shot. It strikes the exposed ammunition boxes stacked carelessly behind the gun. Thousands of heavy-caliber rounds begin cooking off all at once in a blinding, chaotic fireworks display of secondary explosions. The primary physical defense layer protecting Russia's most elite drone commanders has just been violently dismantled by 2 cheap pieces of molded plastic and a few pounds of explosives, and now, the front door of the warehouse is wide open. Inside the underground Rubicon Command Center, the muffled thumps of the surface explosions instantly transform the quiet hum of servers into a frenzy of panic and shouting. The commanding general realizes the perimeter has collapsed and makes a desperate split-second decision to initiate a full emergency data purge. His objective is simple: save the irreplaceable neural network algorithms and the classified flight paths of the entire drone fleet by transferring them to a secure server hundreds of miles away in mainland Russia. A progress bar appears on the main screen, estimated completion time 120 seconds. Above ground, the remaining 4 drones of the Ukrainian swarm arrive over the target site, but now they face what seems like an impossible obstacle. The roof of the command center is a thick slab of solid concrete, strong enough to shrug off their small-shaped charge warheads. A direct strike on the roof would be nothing more than a loud knock on a locked door, but the drones are not aiming for the roof. Guided by incredibly precise satellite intelligence and advanced AI visual recognition, they begin a steep spiraling dive, threading their way between the surrounding buildings. Their cameras lock onto a tiny 1-foot wide thermal anomaly sticking out from the side of the warehouse, the main ventilation exhaust pipe feeding air into the underground bunker. The first drone slides perfectly into the narrow steel ventilation shaft at over 100 miles per hour. The moment it impacts the inner grating, its specialized warhead detonates, triggering a terrifying sequence of microphysics. The explosion instantly collapses a conical copper liner into a superheated hypervelocity jet of molten metal. This finger of liquid fire, moving at thousands of feet per second, punches straight down the shaft, obliterates the blast doors, and severs the main power conduit feeding the entire bunker. Every light goes out instantly. On the command screen below, the data transfer progress bar freezes at 99%, and then the monitors crackle into blackness. The second drone follows the exact same path half a second later, but this one is carrying something entirely different. Its payload is a powerful thermobaric charge designed specifically for enclosed spaces. When it detonates inside the now exposed server room, it disperses a cloud of highly volatile aerosol fuel before igniting it in a massive secondary blast. The resulting pressure wave is catastrophic. It ricochets off the concrete walls, multiplying its own destructive force. The flash heat is so extreme that it instantly melts the server racks, turning millions of dollars of cutting-edge hardware and irreplaceable drone algorithms into useless puddles of molten silicon and slag. In that instant, the brain of Russia's unmanned operations in this sector is permanently erased. The immediate tactical fallout is staggering. But Ukrainian command is not finished, because they are playing a much larger, multi-dimensional game of chess. While the Russian military is still scrambling to understand the sudden, terrifying silence coming from their elite Rubicon unit in Donetsk, a second, far more audacious operation is already unfolding deep inside Russian territory. The severed data link in that Donetsk bunker was never meant to be just a local victory. It was the digital equivalent of pulling a fire alarm in a crowded theater to distract the security guards. Hundreds of miles away, completely undetected by the temporarily confused and rerouting Russian early warning networks, a massive formation of long-range Ukrainian attack drones is already crossing the border in silence. Their target is not a frontline trench, not a temporary ammunition dump. Their target is the industrial heart of Russia's air power. They are converging on a sprawling, highly classified aviation repair and production facility responsible for maintaining the fleet of supersonic bombers and fighter aircraft. The destruction of the Rubicon Center has created a tiny, fleeting window of electronic chaos across the regional defense grid, a momentary blind spot that Ukrainian artificial intelligence has been waiting for. The real heist is about to begin, and the Russian commanders have absolutely no idea that their most valuable strategic assets are sitting directly in the crosshairs. 400 miles deep into Russian airspace, a swarm of 35 Ukrainian long-range attack drones is using the newly opened radar blind spot to slip through the outer defense perimeter. These are not the small quadcopters used in Donetsk. These are fixed-wing, propeller-driven strike drones carrying 85 pounds of high explosives, flying just above the treetops. Then suddenly, a mobile early warning radar system, still recovering from the digital shockwave of the Donetsk strike, manages to detect the incoming formation. A localized air raid siren begins to scream. Russian operators prepare to fire a barrage of interceptor missiles, but the Ukrainian artificial intelligence has already anticipated that exact move. In a split second, 5 drones break away from the main formation and pitch their noses upward, climbing hard to 4,000 feet. They deliberately increase their radar cross-section, turning themselves into screaming decoys. The Russian radar crews immediately take the bait, lock onto the high-altitude targets, and fire 4 surface-to-air missiles. At roughly $2 million per missile, the interceptors obliterate the 5 cheap drones in brilliant flashes of light. The operators cheer. They believe the threat has been neutralized. They never realize that the remaining 30 drones have used the distraction to dive even lower, hugging a riverbed that leads straight into the core of the aviation repair complex. Looming in the darkness is a sprawling multi-billion-dollar industrial facility responsible for modernizing and repairing Russia's strategic bomber fleet. The crown jewel of the complex is a reinforced concrete hangar currently sheltering 2 heavily damaged supersonic bombers awaiting specialized engine replacements. And protecting this high-value asset is a ring of automated point defense cannons designed to throw a wall of lead into the sky. As the 30 Ukrainian drones approach the perimeter, the automated cannons detect their acoustic signatures and erupt into action. Thousands of tracer rounds rip through the dark, creating what looks like an impenetrable dome of defensive fire. 3 drones are instantly shredded, their burning debris raining onto the tarmac below. For a moment, the mission appears to be collapsing against an overwhelming kinetic barrier, but the drones are running on a ruthless swarm logic. Instead of retreating, they surge to their maximum speed of 120 miles per hour and begin flying in a chaotic weaving pattern that overwhelms the targeting computers of the point defense cannons. Then the next 10 drones do something even more shocking. They ignore the hangar itself and slam directly into the massive external steel doors. The simultaneous detonations shear the huge steel hinge pins clean off their mounts. The catastrophic structural failure causes the 100-ton doors to rip loose and crash violently inward, crushing specialized diagnostic equipment and leaving the highly sensitive interior of the hangar fully exposed. The relief on the base commander's face vanishes instantly, because he now understands the truth. The fortress has been breached, and the remaining 8 drones are already adjusting their flight paths to enter the yawning void of the opened hangar. Inside the cavernous structure, the 2 supersonic bombers sit completely helpless, their delicate wiring and fuel lines exposed during maintenance. A team of night shift engineers runs for the emergency exits, as the high-pitched whine of the incoming drones echoes off the concrete walls. The first drone weaves through the tight interior with terrifying precision and locks onto the thermal signature of a portable aviation fuel bowser parked dangerously close to the first bomber. It slams directly into the fuel tank, igniting 1,500 gallons of highly refined jet fuel in a fraction of a second. The fireball expands with devastating speed. It engulfs the entire left wing of the aircraft and instantly melts its complex avionics suite. But the Ukrainian swarm is not interested in random destruction. It is striking the exact bottlenecks of Russian logistics. The next 2 drones bypass the burning bomber completely and dive toward a row of pristine, freshly manufactured turbojet engines resting on reinforced mounting stands. These engines require thousands of hours of precision machining and are nearly impossible to replace under current international sanctions. The shaped-charge warheads punch straight through the titanium casings, shattering the delicate compressor blades into thousands of pieces of high-velocity shrapnel that tear through the surrounding workspace. The chain reaction inside the hangar triggers the facility's automated chemical fire suppression system. Massive overhead valves swing open, preparing to flood the structure with thousands of gallons of specialized foam in a desperate attempt to save whatever remains of the bombers. Outside, Russian-based security forces gather near the burning building, waiting for the foam to knock down the flames so they can rush in. But the Ukrainian mission planners already predicted this response. The final 5 drones of the strike package, which had been loitering high above in a holding pattern, suddenly dive out of the darkness. They do not aim for the burning hangar. Instead, they plunge toward a small, seemingly unimportant concrete utility building a quarter-mile away. That structure houses the main pressurized water pumps and chemical reservoirs for the entire complex. The simultaneous impacts vaporize the primary pumping mechanisms and instantly drop water pressure to 0. Inside the hangar, the overhead valves release one dying hiss. Then the fire suppression system fails completely. Now the blaze is uncontrollable. It spreads rapidly from the hangar into the adjacent testing laboratories, threatening to consume the entire industrial block. In a single strike, the Russian military has not just lost 2 bombers. It has lost the physical ability to repair large portions of its fleet for the foreseeable future. Inside the hangar, the inferno is now burning at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to warp the structural steel beams supporting the roof. Outside, the Russian base commander makes one final desperate attempt to save what remains. He orders a convoy of 6 heavy fire trucks from the neighboring municipal district to race toward the base. These massive red vehicles, loaded with thousands of gallons of water, roar through the smoke with sirens wailing. For the first time, he believes he may have found a physical answer to the electronic nightmare unfolding around him. But once again, the Ukrainian planners were already ahead. They had mapped the emergency response routes weeks in advance. High above the chaos, a single loitering drone acting as an overwatch sentry detects the rumble of the approaching diesel engines. It does not attack the fire trucks directly. Instead, it dives toward the narrow concrete bridge spanning a drainage canal at the base entrance. It strikes the center of that bridge at the exact moment the lead fire truck begins crossing. The shaped charge detonation vaporizes the bridge's main support pillar, and the 50-ton fire truck plunges straight into the concrete trench below. The wreck instantly creates an impassable barricade, blocking the 5 remaining fire trucks from getting anywhere near the inferno. And now the Russian base commander can do nothing except stand there and watch his multi-billion-dollar aviation assets burn to ash, stopped by a single crater and a pile of twisted metal. As dawn rises over the smoking ruins of the aviation facility, the full scale of the strategic disaster finally reaches the highest levels of military command in Moscow. The generals sitting in their pristine offices are not simply looking at a financial loss. They are staring at a terrifying synchronization of asymmetrical warfare. The destruction of the Rubicon Unmanned Systems Unit in occupied Donetsk was never a standalone frontline strike. It was the deliberate blinding of Russia's most advanced electronic coordination network. The Rubicon Center housed the only sophisticated artificial intelligence prediction models capable of analyzing overlapping drone swarm trajectories across multiple time zones. By vaporizing that command center first, Ukraine effectively severed the optic nerve of the Russian aerospace defense grid. For exactly 4 critical hours, the entire Western military district was operating blind, forced to rely on outdated analog reporting methods. So while the Ukrainian long-range swarm slipped past billion-dollar radar umbrellas, Russian leadership believed they were dealing with 2 separate local emergencies. In reality, they were the victims of a single continent-spanning decapitation strike carried out for the cost of roughly $150,000 in fiberglass and commercial electronics. Ukraine has paralyzed a multi-billion-dollar aerospace supply chain, and it has permanently erased the digital brain of the frontline drone war. The consequences of this dual-pronged masterclass go far beyond the immediate destruction of hardware and personnel, because overnight, the entire logic of 21st century warfare has been violently rewritten. For decades, military doctrine insisted that projecting deep strategic power required multi-million-dollar stealth aircraft, gigantic logistics networks, and thousands of highly trained personnel. Ukraine has just proven something radically different. That a small group of engineers, sitting in an undisclosed bunker, armed with laptops, software, and cheap satellite uplinks, can dismantle the industrial backbone of a nuclear superpower.